A Garage Geek 3-in-1. Hi, welcome to Garage Geek. So today I'm going to do a 3-in-1. I am going to look at some Sondheim lyrics. I'm going to cover a Batman facsimile issue. And I'm going to look at some trading cards. Now, recently I had a deer incident, but before that happened, a friend and I went to see a local production of Sunday in the Park with George, and I was spouting off at the mouth saying how I think Sondheim has really brilliant lyrics. So I wanted to put my money where my mouth is, especially I promised Sleepy Reader that I would do this. And it's been a while, but I decided to go ahead and do this. Now, I'm not doing Sondheim justice as much as I should. I'm only going to be looking at two parts from two separate musicals, and I really should do a lot more. I should go much more in depth so that you could really appreciate his lyrics. But at the same time, I don't want to go too in depth and bore my audience who might not be into him. I'm trying to kind of walk a fine line. But the first section I'm going to look at is very different from the one I'm going to look at next. So I'm going to look at a small section from Sunday in the Park with George. And Sunday in the Park with George has a lot of themes, but one of the themes is, what is it to be an artist? And how does society deal with artists? How do they treat them? And also the longevity of art. If you're not familiar with George Seurat, he painted with dots. This is a very big simplification, but to be honest, I'm not an art critic. So this is what I see. He painted a lot of dots, and he wanted our eyes to make sense of the dots, to make patterns from the different dots. So what's important with a painting like his is how close or how far away you stand when you actually look at the painting. So in this scene, we have two people. We have Jules, who is, from what I can remember, owner of a gallery. He's also an artist, and he has some power over George. He likes George when most people in the society frown upon George and what he's doing. And he has the power to put him in his gallery because George really struggles being an artist that no one appreciates. And so he's invited Jules over to take a look at his latest work, which is the basis of the musical. I'll say Jules says, then George, and then from then on, I'm just going to read what they say. Jules: George, I don't know what to say. What is this? George: what is the dominant color? Is this a school exam, George? What is that color? Stage direction says. Jules responds in a bored way: violet. George takes him by the hand and moves him closer to the canvas. George says, see, red and blue. Your eye made the violet. So your eye is perceiving both red and blue and violet. Only 11 colors, no black, divided, not mixed on the palette, mixed by the eye. Can't you see the shimmering? George: science, Jules. Fixed laws for color, like music. You are a painter, not a scientist. You cannot even see these faces. I am not painting faces. I am George. I have touted your work in the past, and now you are embarrassing me. People are talking. Why should I paint like you or anybody else? I am trying to get through to something new, something that is my own, Jules says, and I am trying to understand. George: and I want you to understand. Look at the canvas, Jules. Really look at it. George: let's get to the point. You've invited me here because you want me to try to get this included in the next group show. Why I like this section of the musical is because it really takes apart what Seurat was trying to do, and whether he had these thoughts or not, or whether he said these kind of things or not, it really helps the audience understand what he's trying to do with all the little dots that he puts on the canvas. By introducing Jules, we get to see someone who is skeptical of the painting, and then we get to see a painting lover's perspective, and we get to go back and forth. And then, of course, comes the idea of what happens to non-commercial art. Now, there are so many other themes in this musical, but I just love that section of the musical because it really gets you to understand what Seurat is trying to do and what he was struggling with being an artist who was non-commercial. Even though he was brilliant, having to bow down and beg and scrape in order to get by. So now we're going to move on to a little more of a lighthearted type of musical, and that is Into the Woods. Now, of course, Into the Woods deals with dark themes because it's dealing with fairy tales. And a lot of these fairy tales have morals. So we're only going to be looking at the first song, which is, in many Sondheim musicals, The first song will introduce all the characters and what they're going through and introduce them in a way so that we will revisit them all later. And since this is a musical about fairy tales, we're going to be introduced to many of the, fairy tale characters like Jack and the Beanstalk and Little Red Riding Hood. So in this first section, we have Jack who has to sell his cow, and his mother is persuading Jack that he needs to go sell the cow, but Jack doesn't want to because Jack considers the cow his friend. There are bugs on her dugs, there are flies in her eyes, there's a lump on her rump big enough to be a hump. Son, we've no time to sit and dither, while her withers wither with her, and no one keeps a cow for a friend. In this small section of the introduction, we can hear a lot of alliteration and rhyme to keep these lines flowing. Quick little birds flick through the ashes, pick and peck but swiftly sift through the ashes into the pot. One thing that Sondheim does a lot is he looks at common words and he tries to get us to think about them. Words like good, kind, nice. So let's look at this small section where we're first being introduced to Cinderella. Mother said be good, father said be nice. That was always their advice. So be nice, Cinderella, good Cinderella, nice, good, good, nice. What's the good of being good if everyone is blind and you're always left behind? Never mind, Cinderella, kind Cinderella, nice, good, good, nice. In that section, Cinderella is struggling with, well, I'm always treated this way. What is the benefit of always doing what everyone says and always doing what you're supposed to if all that's ever going to happen to you is you're going to be walked on? Now, in this next section, we have the witch, who in the original Broadway play was played by Bernadette Peters. So in this part of the song, we have the witch who has the farmer's daughter, Rapunzel. And she's talking to the brother of Rapunzel about the bargain that she made with the parents and why. How she got to have Rapunzel. And when it says he, it means the father. He said, all right, but it wasn't quite, because I caught him in the autumn in my garden one night. He was robbing me, raping me, rooting through my rutabaga, raiding my arugula, and ripping up the rampion, my champion, my favorite. But I let him have the rampion. I'd lots to spare. In return, however, I said, fair is fair. You can let me have the baby that your wife will bear, and we'll call it square. A baby for some arugula. It goes on, and the witch says, at last the big day came. I made my claim. Oh, don't take away the baby, they shrieked and screeched. But I did, and I hid her where she'll never be reached. Your father cried, and your mother died, when for extra measure, I admit was a pleasure. I said, sorry, I'm still not mollified. And I laid a little spell on them, you too, son, that your family tree would always be a barren one. So there's no more fuss and there's no more scenes, and my garden thrives. You should see my nectarines, but I'm telling you the same I tell kings and queens. Don't ever, never, ever mess around with my greens, especially the beans. So, of course, in this play, those are the beans that Jack is going to steal. So now we get to the chorus, and the chorus, of course, is Into the Woods. Now, Into the Woods is going to be a metaphor for a journey and also for wish and wishing, and be careful for what you wish for. In fact, a couple times in this play, you have the simple line that says, I wish. And then it goes on to explain what every character wishes for. So into the woods, the time is now. We have to live, I don't care how. Into the woods to sell the cow, you must begin the journey. Straight through the woods and don't delay, we have to face the marketplace. Into the woods to journey's end. Into the woods to sell a friend. And of course, the friend is Jack's cow. So it goes on, but you can see that everyone's journey has different repercussions, and it's not going to turn out the way that they hope. And here's another example of where Sondheim will play with words to try to get us to understand the words that we use in a different light. And he says, the woods are just trees. The trees are just wood. No need to be afraid there. There's something in the glade there. So he said the woods are just trees, so he takes apart the wood to make it into trees, and then he takes the trees and breaks that down into their material, wood. And so when you think about it, woods are nothing to be afraid of. They're just trees which are made of wood. But then again, there's something hiding in those woods. Later in the song, we're introduced to Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. They are going to go back and forth. Mother said, come what may, follow the path and never stray. Now the wolf, just so, little girl, any path. So many worth exploring, just one would be so boring. And look what you're ignoring. And as an aside, he says, think of those crisp, aging bones, then something fresh on the palate. Think of that scrumptious carnality, twice in one day. There's no possible way to describe what you feel when you're talking to your meal. So in this section of the video, I really tried to get you to hear some of Sondheim's lyrics divorced from the music. I wanted you to hear their rhythm and their rhyme. I know the rhymes can sometimes seem simple, but he is playing with themes and ideas that he will develop throughout the course of the musical. If you enjoyed this and you would like me to break down some more of Sondheim lyrics, please let me know. I would love to cover assassins. And with what just happened in the country, I think that it's more topical than ever. It's my favorite work by Sondheim, and I also think it's one of his darkest. Part 2 of this video is we are going to look at the Dick Tracy movie cards. Now, this was a Topps movie card series from whenever the Dick Tracy movie came out. I think I've seen this movie once at the theater, and I haven't seen it since. I should rewatch it. It has Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, Madonna. It's got a bunch of people doing cameos. In fact, I don't have all the cards. So as I went through this, I noticed that I'm missing some. So I'm going to have to keep you updated on this. I'm definitely going to go on eBay and see if I can get the ones that I don't have. Now, what I do have is I have 11 stickers, and these stickers are in really nice condition, and what I like is they're all wanted posters that show all of the characters with the makeup. And I remember in the movie, if I remember correctly, these characters weren't featured in a lot of scenes, but I could totally be wrong about that. And I have 11 stickers, and that just seems like I'm missing some. But the ones that I have are 1 through 11, so I'm not sure. Now, the cards that I have are, as you can see, a little bit bent. And when I was looking at them, they seem to have like a plastic shiny coating on them. And in some cases, you can see little bend marks. So I think these cards were treated with something that in the long run, it protects them, but in the long run, it's not that great for the cards because the back of the cards don't have that coating. Most of the cards are just scenes from the movies, so I'm not going to focus on those a lot. I do want to show you the first couple because they're mostly the characters. And a lot of them are the same stickers. There's Madonna. A lot of them are the same ones as the stickers that I showed you. But they're a lot of fun. Some of them are different poses. Little face. The brow. The rodent. All right, so there you have shoulders. Oh, wait, one more. The Stooge. Nope, one more. Steve the Tramp. The blank. I keep lying. All right, from then on. All right, so there you have Dick Tracy, the movie card collection. That's actually one of my favorite cards right there. In part 3 of this video, we are going to look at the first issue of Batman. Now, this, of course, is a facsimile edition. I mean, yeah, I can't afford to have a real copy of Batman #1. But this comic is so gorgeous in its facsimile edition. Now, as we open it up, the first story is called The Legend of the Batman, and it's a 2-page revisiting of the origin of Batman. And so this is what I have to say. I think that these stories are reprints from Detective Comics, and maybe there are some originals. I don't know. And these first 2 pages is pretty brutal. So Batman's origin has always been violent, but the criminal here gets his say. He says things like, "You asked for it, and this'll shut you up." And of course, that leads to Batman becoming determined to fight crime. And they quickly show you how he gets his name when he sees a bat outside his window. So then we get to the first real story, and this is Batman with Robin, and it's going to be a fight with the Joker. Now, the Joker has crimes where he is stealing jewelry, but what he does is he predicts the crime and he tells exactly when the crime will happen. For example, on the radio, he'll say, "I will steal such and such's diamond at 12 p.m. tomorrow." And then he makes it happen. In this first story, we get these great solid backgrounds. You'll get various colors of blues, greens, yellows. Now, in many comics, you would say that that would be lazy not to draw the backgrounds. But in these older comics, I really appreciate it because it makes the characters really stand out. Batman loses Robin, and he's able to follow Robin at one point. And I quote, "The soles of both Robin and the Batman's boots are treated with a luminous chemical that glows only in the light of the infrared ray." It's like a flashlight that Batman carries around, so he's able to follow Robin's footsteps and find him right before the Joker's about to kill him. So, of course, there's a battle with the Joker that both Batman and Robin take part in, and Batman wins and puts Joker in jail, but Joker vows that he will get out. All in all, it's a fun story with nice art. Now, after that first story, there is a short 2-page story called Major Bigsby and Bots. And I guess this story is meant for comedic relief. These two arrive in a town. They get thrown into jail under mistaken identity. They get out, but then this character is so happy that he got out, so he starts shooting his gun on the ground, which is something that they do in the West where they're from. And the last panel is they're immediately back in jail again. In this comic book, I actually only got this far. There are a lot more stories in here, but time is running out and Garage Geek needs to play some video games. So he's going to give up looking at this comic book for today. However, if you would like to see the rest of this comic, please let me know in the comments. Please let me know in general what you thought about the video. I went out on a little bit of a limb with my Sondheim lyrics. I showed some trading cards. And then we looked at the first couple of stories in the original Batman #1. All comments are appreciated. Thank you so much for the support.